Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. I'm your host, George Roberts. Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we have Mandy McAllister, founder of Good Fortune Capital and founder of Aspiring Women Achieve More. Welcome, Mandy.
Oh, hi, George. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So why don't you kick it off by telling us, who is Mandy McAllister?
Well, I'm a single mama who has a huge focus on life by design. I, because of real estate investments, found myself in a position that I was able to leave my W-2 about 9 weeks ago. So figuring out exactly what I want to do next in terms of having an impact on the world. So lots of small multi-investing is kind of what people have come to know me for, because I kind of operate in the 4 to 50 unit space mostly. And I believe very much in, the figuring out the brain space, that, the mechanics of anything, figuring out the how matters about 20%. It's about 20% of anything you do. 80% of it is where your head is at. The brain work. So mindset stuff, I call myself a mindset ninja, because, just the brain is everything.
Can you show us your moves? I like that. Mindset ninja. Yeah. Make sure you watch us on YouTube. It's even more entertaining, 20% more entertaining. Why don't you take us back a little further? Because I think you have a really interesting life story. So you got to go to college on a volleyball scholarship.
Yeah. So I grew up on a farm. So if you ever need to bale hay, George, I got you. Like that's one of my skill sets. So then I ended up, following volleyball. I was the second girl ever to get to play volleyball on a scholarship from my high school, tiny little community high school in Windsor, Illinois. That and then I followed it to Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, which was a really great experience. But the day I finished at Mercer, I moved to Chicago so that I could live in a major city, did a master's in economics there. And if your dad is a farmer plus master's in economics equals must work at Board of Trade. So I worked at the Board of Trade for a few years before getting into medical sales.
Oh, that's too cool. Because I was going to stop you and say, oh my goodness, we share more experiences, because my father was born on a farm, but he actually went into finance, and that ended up being the family thing. So my mother particularly likes to say, the apple does not fall far from the tree. So my sister, she got a degree, I think a master's in finance. I went into biology, black sheep of the family, but actually ended up, eventually I became a data scientist in the mortgage industry. And guess what? I'm in commercial real estate, syndication. So guess what? I'm in finance too.
It all fits together, I tell you what.
Yep, I love it. I love it. So you do say that you like small multifamily, and I think that's awesome. I love small multifamily. I've got a joint venture in small multifamily in Orlando. But being that you do joint ventures, that's, I think, really cool, because you end up with a much larger equity stake, right? I mean, you're not somebody who needs 500 or 1,000 units to live.
100%. At end of the day, like if my business plan, my goal is to own something long-term in a growing market, that is not the result of being part of a syndication. The syndications largely are a 3, 5, 7-year business plan. If I want to buy and hold for 15, 20 years, like I got to look somewhere else. And, with the larger stake in these joint ventures, that means significantly more upside. That means significantly more larger proportion of the cash flow. So, if I solely did syndications, you end up with 1 or 2% of those deals. Like, even though it's 100, 200 doors, you own 1 or 2% of them. You can own 25% of a 50-unit deal. You end up with a larger proportion, and thereby more cash flow that can fuel your life and help you live a life by design.
Yeah, I love it. So you get to focus on maybe fewer properties, more cash flow. And then also the holding period. I do only know of a very, very few
Mhm.
syndicators that do say that they buy and hold, or that they like to hold forever. So those are all, I think, some pretty amazing advantages, especially because I feel like the whole industry is just syndication happy. People act like, that's the only thing that they want to do, or that's the only aspiration to do. So, but you do also syndicate,
Yeah.
correct?
The way that I looked at it, and you're right, I think that we have become, especially in this podcasting world, like we do end up talking about syndication a lot. And when you're a hammer, all you see are nails,
Mhm.
right? So kind of talking about there are other options out there. Getting involved in the joint ventures, if we would bring in a capital partner, they would want to be active still. That's a requirement of being in a joint venture, but they would need to write a really large check. So one of our partners wrote $1 million check to be in one of the properties. And my friends and family that have seen what I've been able to be a part of and build because of real estate want to be involved, but they can't write $1 million check, right? So a way to help them get involved, $50,000 or $100,000 at a time, sometimes from their self-directed IRA, as long as it's still a thing that we can do, right? It's an easy way to help them get involved, and that's why I've chosen to get involved in syndication here for the first time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it does allow, I mean, maybe not, passive. Obviously, you're still very active as a JV, but I've heard it compared to uh, syndication in the terms of that if you're a syndicator, right, you are always busy, always answering that telephone, whereas you still, obviously, an active investor as heading up a JV, you can turn that off sometimes and maybe just shuffle things off to your business partners.
Because we're all in it together, and I do own, some units that are just me as well.
Mhm.
So that really, the way that I looked at when can I leave my W-2, I went to some friends who were kind of going the syndication route, and they would say, oh, I need to do this deal and that deal, and then I get that acquisition fee and that disposition fee, and then all I got to do is 4 deals a year. And I thought, oh my God, you got to go find 4 deals worth doing. What if there's not 4 big deals that are worth doing? You're going to end up doing a deal that's not the right deal. You're going to have to do it so you can feed your kids, right? I never want to be in that position. So what I focused on first was building this floor of passive income from my own portfolio and from joint venture long-term holds that will provide for the life that I'm going to live. And then I get a chance to go be really surgical with my decisions, really choosy if I do decide to get into a syndication like the one I'm a part of now. It really speaks to everything that I believe in, having a ton of different exit points so that we're not locked into one business plan. Many syndications that I see, you kind of have to thread the needle. Like we got to sell it at a 4 cap, and we got to make sure that we can refinance in year 2, and then we're going to sell in year 5, and it's going to be perfect. And like, that's the only way to achieve the returns that we're projected. Well, I like to be part of, I don't want a home run. I'm not an entrepreneur that swings for home runs, right? I want to hit a lot of singles. I want to hit a lot of doubles, right? So this really strongly risk mitigated deal that has a ton of upside just by nature of what it is going to be a great way to help some friends and family get involved.
Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. And we also talked briefly off camera about how being passive is not a dirty word. Yes, tell us more
Right.
about that.
You know, the thing is, I'm part of a mastermind called GoBundance. And when I listen to talks by these 8-figure wealth people, right, they're not obsessed with being like, if you're kind of up and coming, right, and growing your wealth, like you are just so excited to get your hands dirty. And it seems like the thing you need to do. You are a hammer, you see a nail, right? So if you look at the guys that have 7-8 figures of wealth, they're looking for passive investments because they realize that if they can put their money to work in a syndication, If you are the passive investor, you're getting 70%, the vast majority of the upside, and you are not doing any of the work. You're not trading any time for it. So it's not a dirty word to be a passive investor. It's actually the thing that I'm seeking out. I would rather just be passive in all this stuff. But now that I have this bandwidth, I have this option to help friends get into that passive role. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's great. Let's do a quick sanity check for all you aspiring syndicators out there. So let's say you get 10% of a deal as a GP and it is a 70-30 split, boom. You're getting 3% of the deal, and that could be an awesome thing, but you're going to be working really hard for that, and probably do have to do, like you said, you might have to do 4 deals a year just to stay afloat.
And apply a little bit more number to that, right? Like, let's pretend it's a 100-unit property and you own a 10% of that GP that's a 70-30 split, right? Like, ostensibly, you own a triplex, dude, right?
Yeah.
So understand that if you want your hands dirty, like you would potentially be able to own it long term, take more advantage of taxes. Like, there's a lot of, I don't poo-poo the small stuff like some syndicators might. Like, I think that there's benefit to, there's a bazillion ways to skin a cat, there's a bazillion ways to make money in real estate. So just choose your lane and stick to it.
I like that. I like that. Choose your lane and stick to it. That might be the quote of this podcast. No, and I love the way you look at it in terms of units, because I often remind myself, now my first multifamily deal, 14 units in Orlando. I own 30% of it as a joint venture. And so, yeah, I own like 4.2 units. And that's really cool. But the value of that truly was the thin edge of the wedge. It got me into bigger and better things. And I'm so happy that I did that rather than a single family or 2 single families, which I quite frankly could not have financed with the cash that I actually put into that.
Right.
So, but again, yeah, you have to remind yourself that I mean, the real deal is the cash flow, and if you can have a large proportion of something maybe moderate size, maybe much better than having a small proportion of something that's great in size.
Well, and you get to take advantage of all the bigger deal stuff, right? Like, one of the things, like with my background in economics, like looking at where we're at in this climate, like there is no way, in my humble opinion, talk to your attorneys, I'm not anybody special, this is just my opinion, that I think inflation is here to stay based off of how much money we've printed. If you look at the M1, if you look at the money supply, it has skyrocketed. Like, that, the result of that has to be inflation. So if I can lock in this really incredible long-term fixed rate debt for as long as I possibly can, if I'm borrowing more than $1 million, I can take advantage of the Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae small balance loan programs, where that I'm able to have non-recourse debt. At right now, the deal that we're working on is a 3.2% rate for 11 years. I think that inflation is going to take care of a lot of that for us. So I get to take advantage of the stuff that the bigger deals can take advantage of, but also have a larger proportion of ownership.
That's cool. And when you mentioned economics, if you hadn't mentioned it, I was going to launch right into inflation and ask you what do you think is going to happen next? And I completely agree. I don't have an economics background, but I am a data guru, and I will tell you that inflation may be hard to get started. And I think that we dodged a few bullets over the past year, but I completely agree with you. When it gets started, I don't see how it's going to stop. And those of us who lived through 1970s and remember the gas shortages and having to wait in line for gasoline and the stagflation, I really don't look forward to what I think we may have in store. I don't know if you've been following the Bank of Canada, but if you think that what we've been doing over here is nuts, go look up those statistics and take a look at how much they have been printing. Yeah.
Just because we've kicked the can down the road doesn't mean there isn't a can,
All right, I think that's great. We may have a lot of great pull quotes from this interview. So let's see. I love to hear the stories of acquisitions, and I hear that you have a couple of great acquisition stories that you'd like to tell us. Why don't you start us with your first larger deal of 53 units?
Sure. So that property, it's in Indianapolis. It was, the first larger thing I'd ever done. I've got very comfortable in the sub 10 small multi. I overcame a lot of fear to get into something, right? But then it was like this whole new world getting into this 50-ish unit. We were borrowing from Fannie Mae to get that done. It was in we closed September of last year, September of 2020. So right in the middle of all the COVID stuff, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they were changing all of their lending requirements. And I was scared, right? Like, what if everybody loses their job? This is a really big deal. $4 million is huge, right? So what I ended up realizing is if I can get really, I was reading a lot of Stoic philosophy at the time, if I can get really comfortable with the downside, like the very worst case scenario, and then mitigate that risk however I can, then it will become obvious that I should move forward or not. So I realized that the worst case scenario is that we started to lose money. So where is the point that we would start to lose money in a property? Well, you can calculate an economic break-even point. And we did, and it was at about 46%. So about 46% of our units would have to be vacant or tenants not paying. So what I was able to then think through is, okay, who's losing their jobs in COVID? Manicurists, bartenders, people who have these service type industry jobs. People who kept their jobs were like police officers, nurses, people who were computer programmers, sales reps, people like that. So what I did is I took the applications that those tenants that we were inheriting had filled out from the previous property manager, and I made a pile. At-risk job, not at-risk job, at-risk job, right? And I had about 5, we thought, at-risk jobs, which was 10% of the units. And I knew my economic break-even point was 46%. So it seemed obvious that this was going to be a deal worth doing. So kind of the punchline or the follow-up 1 year later on that I'm super proud of, part of my role in the joint venture is to do reconciliation of reports that come from the property manager and versus our projections. So we thought we would do a net operating income of about $220,000 on this property year 1 of holding it. Actually, in year 1 of holding it, we did 292,000 NOI. I'm so proud to report that if what you're doing is getting into property with conservative underwriting, you really can outperform it. So it was really neat to see the proof in the pudding.
That's amazing. And I think it's also wonderful that one of the things that you are doing is you are reconciling between your projections and actuals for your investors. That is way cool.
I think that anything you do, the more truth you put to it, the easier it is to deal with, right? So this is like a life mantra that I've been living by. Any problem that I'm trying to solve, the more truth that I put to it, the easier it is to address.
And I also love that Stoic angle, because I usually ask people when I sense that Stoicism, I think it's got to be not only the greatest and most practical philosophy that has ever been devised. If there was ever a time in history that there was more need for Stoicism, I don't know what it would be.
I agree.
Awesome. All right, so maybe we can go back to the philosophical track for a moment. So you did mention that you are part of GoBundance. I'm not sure if you really told us exactly what this tribe is all about. So tell us some of the awesome things you're doing with GoBundance.
Sure. So GoBundance, it's their moniker is Tribe of Millionaires. So if you go to GoBundance.com, there's a book that's kind of like a novel that talks a little bit about it. Very, very interesting. But basically what it is, it's a mastermind of people coming together that prize the same things in life. We have 6 pillars that we live our lives by, and we do something called examples of the pillars are, horizontal income. So passive income. Again, passive is not a dirty word. Right? Age-defying health, accountability, adventure, like giving back. So charity, like all of the things that matter to me in my life is what this organization stands by, the 6 pillars. So one thing that we do, and to talk about adding truth to things, we do something called a 1 sheet, where every single quarter we look at how we've performed on these 6 pillars. So we dive into, finances. How did you do financially this quarter versus your goals? What is your life happiness index? Like we it was actually a very interesting thing that I realized like that I wasn't having enough adventure. Right. So I just set an intention to have adventure days with my kiddo. Right. And we, you know, we would play hooky or go have a whole day that we would, you know, just have fun memory making stuff. So I wouldn't have thought to do those things if I wasn't surrounded by people doing it. So GoBundance, it's honestly, it's probably one of the very best things I've ever done with my life, is surrounding myself with people who want the same types of things that I want.
That is amazing. And I got to say, one of the great benefits of living in Southeast Michigan is that I'm about an hour from Jamie Gruber's meetup. Jamie is a big part of GoBundance and also our episode number 9 on the Foundery. So I just love the idea of GoBundance. I've looked into it and I think that I definitely do want to join that at some point when I can focus the time. But I gather that this is one of those things that you're really supposed to just dive into, because talk about lacking adventure. I've taken the last 2 Fridays off for my W-2 to go sailing, and I still haven't seen my sailboat.
Ooh.
So I'm telling you, yeah, sometimes you just have to box the time off, just jump into it. And I just love the idea of keeping that ledger of how you're doing on all of those 6 principles, and all great principles. Wow. So let's see where we should go next with this. You have a lot of things going on. So you did mention that you are coaching people to buy small multifamilies, just as you've been doing, and you can find that on, I think it's mandymcallister.com. Is that right?
There is.
Awesome. And you mentioned your Aspiring Women Achieving More, which is a Facebook group, and I think has grown beyond the bounds of that now.
Yeah, we started it just because it kind of the same type of like, I want to connect with people who want what I want, right? Like I want to, if I have a big success with a property, or I have an issue that I need to workshop, like I want to be around other women that are playing big, right? Like that are trying to do, you know, I like getting a manicure, but it's not the only thing about my life, do you know? And we talk about like the whole life stuff. And we put the whole woman first. We do a lot of master classes. We did one on how to hire a virtual assistant if you need to outsource some stuff. We did one on, we're about to do one on like web design and funnels and all these different things that entrepreneurial women or entrepreneurs are in need of. And we're also doing some, you know, coaching and courses, and it's neat to see what that's grown into, but it is like a really great support network of, you know, accountability, if you want it, of 2,500 women on Facebook.
That is awesome. So I see that you're part of a more than one amazing tribe, Mandy.
Well, I mean, I feel like you're given 2 arms for a reason, right? Like there's one arm to pull yourself up, and that's kind of what GoBundance fills for me. You're given another arm to help pull people up with you, and that's kind of what I'm trying to construct with Aspiring Women.
Beautiful. So then let's go into a little more mindset stuff. You told us about COVID, and you mentioned, I believe, that 53 unit acquisition that came at the beginning of the COVID crisis. So tell us how COVID impacted you and how you were able to use this time to your greatest benefit as an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I was my medical device sales job is something I did for 16 years, and I knew that I wanted more time freedom, because it's an interesting life epiphany that I was going to go to medical school. Like I started undergrad in chemistry with the full intention of getting into medicine. And I ended up talking with a physician who said, oh no, you better really love medicine because you're going to be on call. You're going to be tied to this pager. You better really want it because I don't want it. Right. And that made me kind of rethink things as like a 19-year-old. So I switched to the business school then because I didn't want to be on call. Yada, yada, yada. I end up ascending the ladder of medical device sales in a position where I'm on call for medical device stuff. So like, what a perfect, like, you know, roundabout way to get where I didn't want to be. So I knew I wanted to take back my time. So in medical device sales, the thing that I was selling for the last couple of years was considered an implant that was elective. So elective procedures, they were shut down for 3 months or so, which meant that instead of bebopping around supporting cases, helping, hospitals out with their protocols, my butt was in this chair for 3 months in a way that it wasn't ever before. So I had a chance to focus a little more time on real estate investing and realized that in those 3 months, I did 4 transactions that made more than double what my day job was making. So, oh my gosh, what if I can actually give some focus to real estate? And oh my gosh, it's just a math problem to figure out how much cash flow I need in order to live my life. So I looked for like a little calculator to help me figure that out, and I couldn't find one. So I made one, which I'll give you the link for if you're interested in sharing with people. But it helped me figure out like what actual truth of a number do I need to put for my passive income where I'm going to feel comfortable leaving my day job. And I hit that within COVID. So I made the plan to kind of exit my W-2 because of things I learned, the bravery I found, the thing I proved to myself that if I give focus to real estate, I can really knock it out of the park.
That is beautiful. I would love to share that. Give us that link. I'll put it in the show notes. What is it briefly? Is it?
It's just an Excel spreadsheet that helps you kind of estimate what you need to see in order to leave your day job. I talk about a couple tools. I use mint.com quite a bit to help track what it is that I spend on an average basis. Because that's the thing that, friendly reminder, if you have passive income of $4,000 and you spend $2,000 a month, you are free. You are free to make decisions that are different from anybody who is required to show up for work. So it's really just kind of helps you estimate that. I made a little video too, because I kept getting the same questions over and over about how to use it. So it's on my website, mandymcallister.com, under the blog, but I'll give you the link for the show notes.
Okay, that's awesome. I think that that is certainly a question I think a lot of listeners and viewers have. It's always hard to say if you had, X additional hours because you're away from that W-2, how much excess income. I feel like we're thinking like economists here, right? Thinking at the margins, right? Isn't that what economists do? Yeah, is how much marginal wealth would you be creating? And wow, it's quite a leap.
The opportunity cost of having a day job.
Yes,
I think
the
we're on
opportunity
an article
cost.
Here. We got to write that.
To put it in economic speak. So yeah, when you told me that you had quit your job July 30th during the pandemic, somehow I had assumed that was 2020, but we're talking like this year. Like this is just amazing progress this last year, this year, and then I'm sure meteoric rise over those last couple of months. Super amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of brain space. There's been childcare stuff, which has been really cool because wow, I can show up for my kid in a way I wouldn't have been able to. So it's been instructive and exactly what I want out of my life. And the thing is, I feel like I'll speak for myself, but I think this might be true of a lot of other people, that I would say, oh, I'm working 14-hour days for my kid because my family matters so much to me. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm not seeing my kid. So am I really working 14-hour days because I want to win the President's Club award again at my medical device job? Or am I actually putting my money where my mouth is and showing up for my kid? So it's been really neat to, live my actual values.
I love it. Now, you're doing so many things. I just want people to get an idea of all the amazing things you're doing. So let's see. You have your in-person meetup in Chicago, still in Chicago, correct?
Yeah, sure.
And then you're also part of the Multifamily Masters, which is another, is that a meetup or what? What is Multifamily Masters?
So I took my meetup, it was kind of a grassroots, just mine,
and
folded it into my friends. They started an organization that was a bunch of different meetups all across the US and now globally. And we're all kind of coming together for an in-person summit, basically conference that will be in Orlando the 13th and 14th of November, 2021. So I think they associated a coupon code with my name. It's not like an affiliate thing. I don't get anything out of it if you use it. But I think I think it's McAllister is what you punch in and you get MCALLISTER for $100 off or something.
And you just anticipated my next two questions. I was going to say that you're hosting a really big meetup in Florida. And I was going to hope that it was in Orlando, but I'm actually going to Jake and Gino. So I'm going to be heading out probably by the 31st of October. So unfortunately, it's probably not in the cards for me to come out there, but I hope some of my listeners are able to head out there and see that, because I'm sure that it will be full of all of the fire and imagination that Mandy McAllister is known for.
I have the distinct honor of getting to MC the event. I'm not the primary organizer, but I've seen a lot of the stuff that's in the works. I get to serve on a couple panels too. So it'll be really cool. It's a lot of people who've really put a lot of focus in multifamily and made some big moves in the last few years, because I think it's incredibly instructive. It's great to see the guy who's got, 10 million, 20, 40, 100 million in wealth, but it's kind of nice to see like someone who's 5-10 steps ahead of you. So like that's where I feel like I'm at. Five or 10 steps ahead around someone that I could maybe help out who's getting started.
That is awesome. So I think we're going to wrap up and send out with a couple of great Mandy McAllister quotes. So learning how to do something is only 20%. Mindset is 80%. Remember that you have two arms for a reason. Yeah, use that other arm to pull somebody up. And I know there's a lot of other great quotes. I'm going to go pull those out, and I'm going to be pulling those quotes and promoting this big time on LinkedIn. So I want to thank you, Mandy McAllister. Thank you for joining us today. What an amazing and high energy interview.
Thank you. That was so fun. I appreciate you, George.